This is PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pop Daily. I'm Dan Mannarino, PIX on Politics Daily on this Monday, June 16th. So it is a big Monday because it's the first Monday since early voting began on Saturday. And you know what? When it comes to primaries, New York has a history of kind of turning out low voter turnout for primaries, right? But if any indication of what we're seeing play out in just the past 2 days of early voting, we are seeing bigger numbers than we saw 4 years ago. So that is a good sign that people may be paying attention, maybe going out, exercising their right to vote. And then, of course, people like to do what they do on primary day, which is wait until the actual day and actually head to the ballot. There's also ranked choice voting. A lot of folks that we're talking to still don't really fully understand what ranked choice voting is. So we're going to be doing explainers throughout the week this week on what ranked choice voting means, because you do have power beyond going just beyond a number one. You have 5 choices for some of these offices, including the race for mayor. So we're going to break that down for you later in the week as well. So stay tuned for that. But I want to talk about kind of where we are in this race, right? We're waiting for a big poll to come out this week from mayors. There's a lot of rumblings about what exactly that poll may or may not show. In recent polls that came out late last week, we saw a tightening in the race, right? Between the front runner, which was Andrew Cuomo, to Mamdani. That lead from Cuomo had shortened. And then in one of the polls that came out from a Justin Brandon poll, we saw that Mamdani actually was ahead of Cuomo by a few points. Cuomo's people saying, well, that was just an anomaly and no big deal, nothing to see over here. So there's a lot to kind of pay attention to, right? So I want to bring in Nick Smith right now. He's the president of Polaris, New York. He's a Democratic strategist as well, to talk more about this race. Early voting underway, Nick. So that is certainly a good sign. And some of these numbers really show that people may be paying attention. But I want to talk to you about the black vote in particular, Nick, because I know you've been paying close attention to Cuomo's message and how it may be resonating specifically with a black voter. So what is your intel on this?
Sure. First, thanks for having me back on the show, Dan.
Yeah.
So I began to watch what the candidates were doing maybe a year ago. Some announced, some hadn't. And the first thing I really saw was the former governor Cuomo, start canvassing black churches more than a year ago. So I think he knew that he planned to run for the mayor's seat, and they all know that the black vote is going to be central in this election. Right now, the numbers show that the former governor is by far ahead of all the other candidates when it comes to black voters. So the question for a Mamdani or a Brad Landa or Adrian Adams is, how can you bring those numbers down in the next week to make it at least somewhat competitive? In other words, to squeak past the former governor come the election. So the black vote is up for grabs. I think the former governor has great numbers, but we got a week to go.
But didn't we see that with other candidates as well, Nick? Haven't many of them, as kind of a rite of passage, gone to a lot of the black churches around the 5 boroughs and speak to the pastors, speak to the congregations as well? Or are you saying Cuomo specifically did it more?
Yeah, I think he began to have a launch phase of his campaign much earlier than some of the others. And you've seen him go around black churches in particular to lock in the vote. And so for me, the first question is, why do black voters kind of flock his way? And I really mean voters over 40, voters who show up for all the primaries and all the general elections. I think it's a number of reasons. Number one, he was a 2-term plus governor of the state. And, when it comes to some of the troubles, and this is not my opinion, but I hear it on the streets. There is a thought that the former governor himself was mistreated when it came to some of the allegations. So I think those are some reasons why his numbers are so high. And again, that goes back to the other candidates. How do you frame your campaign in the stretch to show black voters that, one, maybe we haven't seen the results among affordable housing, among other issues that matter. And maybe, his numbers are very high because of a name ID. Maybe that's the reason he's so high among black voters right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you speak to the Mamdani camp, they're going to say, well, the numbers were favorable to Andrew Cuomo maybe in the early months, but as we near early voting and as we near really primary day, those numbers have tightened. And in one poll in particular, Nick, Mamdani's ahead. And so he may say, well, look, I've been doing the work. I've been on the ground. I mean, he is, regardless of where you kind of stand, he's running an incredible campaign in terms of social media and his presence online, reaching a different demographic and a different audience.
Yeah, nobody can say that Mamdani hasn't done just a fantastic job capturing particularly younger voters. So when we talk about black voters, there's several voting blocks here. There's the progressive lane, there's the young lane. There's probably a correlation between the young lane and the more progressive lane, and Mamdani has almost locked that down. But don't discount other candidates. Lander in the last few days has seen, he cross-endorsed Mamdani. Mamdani cross-endorsed Michael Blake. So, when we talk about young voters and where they are, I think Mamdani is doing quite well, as is Lander. So we'll see.
Let me stop you there for a second, because the cross-endorsing is a relatively new concept. I listened to a podcast recently with our good friends over at the City, and they were an FAQ podcast. By the way, you should take a listen to it. It's fantastic for your viewers at home. But basically, it was Catherine Garcia saying, look, maybe I should have cross-endorsed when I was running 4 years ago, but it was a new concept. I didn't know what it means. I only lost by a few thousand votes. So to a viewer or a voter who's looking at this saying, okay, so Lander just cross-endorsed Mamdani and then vice versa, and now Blake's doing the same, and Mamdani kind of gave a surge to Adrienne Adams, but she won't reciprocate yet. What does it all mean?
It's a great point, Dan. So, I think for most voters, ranked choice voting is new. You've got to, I recommend that folks fill out the ballot. And here's the reason. When you pick your number one candidate, there's going to be several rounds of tabulation. If your first choice candidate or second choice candidate gets eliminated, there's going to be further rounds. And so that means your vote counted in the first couple of rounds. But if a candidate gets eliminated, that's it for in terms of your own vote. So the candidates, their strategy of cross-endorsing is trying to look strategically. So they're looking at who is the number one or number two candidate, and how can I get them to make me their second choice. So for example, if I am a Mamdani voter, I'm probably not going to rank the former governor second or third. I may consider someone like a Comptroller Brad Lander or Speaker Adams or Michael Blake or Zellnor Myrie, state senator. And the rationale is there's going to be rounds of voting where candidates get eliminated until you have a number one and number two, and that's it. So to your point about the last election, yes, it was Eric Adams, Maya Wiley, and Catherine Garcia. I think Garcia is saying, had she cross-endorsed another candidate, she may have received another 5,000, 10,000 votes, and that would have been the election. Eric Adams won the last election by only a few thousand votes.
Right.
And so the strategy of cross-endorsing is very smart, particularly when candidates are going to be eliminated, Dan.
Yeah, but then can you explain to me, and I know we're going to go down a rabbit hole here, but like a Jessica Ramos who endorses Cuomo, and then he makes it a point to say, well, this is not a cross-endorsement. So what's the strategy?
Well, I'll be honest, that endorsement confused me as an analyst. I don't think that the Senator Ramos caught too much fire in this election. And I will take her at her word that she endorsed the former governor because she believes on the merits the former governor is the best candidate.
And so for somebody like Michael Blake, right, he is polling relatively at zero. So a cross-endorsement does what for him, right? And I guess the question I heard from some New Yorkers, Nick, is why doesn't the Jessica Ramos or Michael Blake say, you know what, I'm out, and I throw my full support behind somebody else? Or is that pretty much what you're doing when you cross-endorse and you're not polling well? Yeah, and I think they also want some influence beyond the election. So if the former governor wins based on Senator Ramos's endorsement and he gains in their review 2%, 5%, that could be their primary. And so that could be a benefit to the former governor and to the endorser. Who knows? It could be support for a future race for office. It could be support for a new job. So there's more reasons to cross-endorse beyond getting someone over the finish line, potentially. It could be personal. Here's what was very interesting to me as well. The Board of Elections came out and said, look, primary night's going to look a little different. And the polls close at 9 o'clock in New York, and you'll have some initial results, but they're not going to run the simulation and tabulation of the ranked choice voting with a result until July 1st. And so why? Was it because they had a mishap last time where they kind of ran those practice ballots by accident and they wanted to make sure that there's no errors this go around? I mean, that seems like a long ways away from June 24th. Most voters are going to be so annoyed about this, as I will. I want to know who's going to win on election night. I think that's right. I think based on how the last election went, the BOE wants to take a bit more time to tabulate, get initial read, and then probably retabulate and make sure they got it right before they announce a final result. And there's probably a larger picture here when it comes to election results.
We know we've had a big issue in the country with election
Yeah.
fraud, and so I think they're just doing their real due diligence, even at the dismay of the candidates and the voters. So unfortunately, it will take a couple of days to see who is the final winner, as it did last round.
Yeah, and I spoke to a few experts who had said, look, whoever is on election night, you'll have some idea of who the front runner is. And even with a ranked choice, whoever that person may be will likely be the winner down the road. But yeah, everybody wants to know who's going to be the winner. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Nick, I want to talk to you about your new role, president of Polaris New York, and what exactly the firm does and stands for.
Oh, thank you for mentioning it. So I've decided after many years of government service and work in the nonprofit world that I would go out and launch my own consulting firm, working with nonprofit organizations, working with candidates for office, and really giving my expertise after all these years of passing major bills into law, working with media outlets. And so I thought it's time to do that in a way that is under my own shingle. So the firm is Polaris New York, and I'm very excited to be the new president.
Nice. Congratulations on that. Now, is your idea to put influence on a certain candidate, or are you staying out of that endorsing game?
Oh, no. The idea is to make sure that on the policy front things are moving forward. And let me give you just one quick example.
Yeah.
In the Harris-Trump election, we saw that actually Trump's voters among Black and Latino voters went up by a few percent. And I think part of the reason is these voters are really tired of plans being put out. For example, on housing, no real fundamental change. And so we've got to make sure that we build, a grassroots movement to show electeds at all levels, but particularly city and state, that we can't just put out plans and move the needle in a kind of a small way. Voters want fundamental change. And so whether it's this mayoral election or whether it's other elections coming up or budget sessions or what have you, we got to really focus on fundamental change. And I think if that happens, the Democratic Party, of which I'm a part of, will do much better, not only in the coming local races, but the next presidential as well. All
right, Nick, I really enjoyed this conversation. Congratulations on your new role. And we'll have you back soon, okay? Good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you, Ned. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, everybody. And so we're laser focused on this race. You can catch all the interviews we did, by the way, with the Democratic candidates for mayor. That is on our website now, PIX11.com. We'll be following this, and we'll stay tuned for the ranked choice voting explainers and things like that later on in the week. And I'm also sitting down one-on-one with Governor Kathy Hochul this week. We'll bring you that interview later on as well. But in the meantime, hopefully you got something out of this conversation, and go vote. It's important. We'll see you next time.